good? Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to my channel. This is the Writer's Room. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, the Writer's Room is just a terminology used regularly with TV and film and other creative outlets where people get together and they just create and bounce and facilitate different ideas off of one another. And I just thought it was a pretty dope name. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into this recap. So BET Plus decided to grace us with a brand new fresh show on their network. If you guys haven't already, please go ahead and look into this show. They do have all 8 episodes on the network right now. The release date was May 19th, 2022. And I'm just going to give a brief summary and a synopsis over the storyline. So the storyline says on IMDb, behind the scenes, look into the world of the gospel music industry and all of the conflict and secrets that come with money, fame, and success. This is starring Yolanda Adams, the beautiful, the gracious, one of the top gospel artists that I know of. It also stars your girl Soraya. You may know her from Empire, as well as Michael Beach, and you may know him from Soul Food for always being that cheating bastard. Yes, that's him. Well, it doesn't seem that he's that much different on this show. But before I even get into that, let's just go ahead and get into this recap for this first episode. Okay, so we begin with a woman singing, and this woman is Yolanda Adams, no other than. And it also has her son and what appears to be his girlfriend in the audience. And they're just talking about how great his mom is and basically laying out the fact that she is a legend, which is not very far from what we know of Yolanda Adams. But we do switch over to the next scene in which we get a stripper scene, which is pretty opposite from the church scene that we just had. But that is very important because we are then introduced to the first and main character of the show, Chardonnay, a stripper, who is also in a relationship with the club's DJ. I have to admit, in this scene was kind of funny because of the whole Jonas Brothers comment. Hella funny. I mean, looking for some chocolate? Like, sis, what? This scene is important because it not only establishes who Chardonnay is, but it also says her name and it establishes the characters and the storyline, the plot line thickens at this moment. So we have Chardonnay, who we find out her real name is actually Rebel. And we learn that when her friend Danny storms down the stairs, upset and triggered by something that the bouncer said or did. We then switch back over to the church scene and learn that not only is the mom that we see singing known as Danita Jordan, but she's the first lady and she's the biggest gospel artist out there. And I just want to put a disclaimer out there. Shout out to Kirk Franklin because his work is written all over this show. Okay, the songs are slapping. But we do learn that she is the first lady, and her daughter CJ is the choir director, and her son Taj, who we saw in the front row with his girlfriend, is the A&R over her record label, First Kingdom record label. Danita sings her single that really put her on the map, and a strange man is in the back watching. And on this part, I'm like, okay, this man is clearly a hater, so move along. But we're going to find out exactly who he is and what he does and what he has to bring to this storyline. Danny is basically saying that she's pretty much through with this strip life. She doesn't want to be a part of it, and she's tired of feeling like she can't say no. But then we dive right into the next scene where Danny and Rebel are walking out, and we learn that Danny was raised in the church and her parents are hardcore devoted Christians who have put their last into this church. Okay, now I'm kind of getting the feeling at this point that this may be the same church that the Jordans are at. Okay, now we do find out that her and Rebel met while they were in juvie together. Rebel is trying to convince Danny that things are good. There's no need to complain about being morally correct because you getting money, you got this body. It's pretty much the same Players Club anthem, like use what you got to get what you want. Later, we do learn that Rebel sings and Danny raps. No cap, the song was actually a smash. And Danny would much rather pursue a music career and get out of the strip game for good. But then after the conversation that Danny has with Rebel about leaving the game, we see another car parked on the other side of the road in front of Danny's house. And Danny also sees this person, and I think she knows who it is because she starts arguing with this person. And somehow a gun comes out. Danny tries to grab the gun and ends up getting shot. And this is where we see Bishop Jordan actually brushes shoulders with Rebel, and he enters in the hospital. And this is where we find out he actually received a phone call from Danny's parents just saying that she has been shot. And this is actually where we find out that Danny did not come out of surgery successfully, and Danny has DIED. I don't want to say it on YouTube because you know how it is. We then go into the next scene, and this is where Rebel actually gets home, and she's covered, drenched up in Danny's blood. So Rebel is trying to get all of that mess out, and this was such a beautiful scene. For me, cinematically, it was a beautiful scene. Just seeing Rebel break down the way that she did, and we get a glimpse of like sympathy from her boyfriend. Now in this next scene, we do cut over into Danita Jordan. She's addressing everybody and all the members of her record label at First Kingdom, and they're talking about the 12 nominations that Danita Jordan has received at the Stellar Awards. And Sasha, which is a character played by Tamar Braxton, asked about Caesar's nominations. Just messy. Danita says it's not important. And in this scene, Taj actually makes mention that Danita is not only nominated 12 times at the Stellar Awards, but she's also being honored for a Lifetime Achievement Award for her first single and first album. And in this response, Danita does once again mention that she's not retired, which I kind of go back to this because in the beginning, she does mention that everyone wants her to retire, or they ask her when she's going to be done. So something tells me that this retirement or this achievement award, it's kind of a sore spot for Miss Danita. And I want you guys to peep the look that Sasha gives Danita after her speech and after her remarks about Caesar's nominations. I don't know, but it kind of sets the tone for who Sasha's character is. We then cut to Caesar running in the park, and this is the guy who we know by now is a hater. In our eyes, he is, but he makes mention that he is actually the one responsible for the success of One Moment from Glory album. We kind of are digging into a little bit of the backstory with Caesar and Danita. The producer that Caesar is talking to does make mention that Danita did inquire and ask about Caesar's nominations for the Stellar Awards. The next scene that we cut to is Calvin Jordan asking Danita to host the memorial at his church for Danny. And Danita kind of is like, no, she's making snarky remarks about how Danny was a stripper and she just did not uphold any values that the church has. And in all judgment, we then transition over to Rebel, and she is talking to who we now know as the guidance counselor at the juvenile detention where Rebel and Danny met. This is basically laying down the backstory of Rebel and Danny and just letting us know that her and Danny were road dogs, they were best friends, and how much this hurts. And the guidance counselor is trying to convince Rebel to go to the memorial. We cut to the next scene, and this is the church scene where Rebel does end up going to the memorial and sitting by the guidance counselor. And in this moment, the Bishop Jordan does ask anyone if they want to say anything, any last remarks or words to just lift the family up in prayers. Rebel hesitates and then opens her mouth to sing because she does not know anything else what to do at this moment. Rebel comes and shuts it down. I mean, she's got Miss Danita Jordan, the queen of gospel, shaking in her boots. Look how upset she looks. But everyone in the church is completely taken aback, and they want to know, and they're drawn into her voice, but they want to know, what? Who is this chick? I mean, she is straight killing it up there. I mean, just hitting notes. The choir director, which we know as CJ, the daughter of the Bishop Jordan and Danita Jordan, she goes up there. She's like, oh, we got to make this into a song. And she just has the whole band playing behind her. But we do find out and see in the audience that the family is kind of put into a place of peace. So this turned out to be a really good thing. But then Rebel just suddenly storms out of the church and is never to be seen again. We then cut over to the gossip journalist who I was talking about earlier that Danita was watching, and we find out that the video that was recorded of Rebel singing at the church completely went viral, and I mean everyone is talking about who is this chick. Then cut to the next scene, which is Taj talking to his girlfriend Essence, who we find out is a music superstar. She's a global superstar and she is beautiful. Might I mention that Essence, the woman that plays her, is named Lamaya Good, and she's also Megan Good's sister. So fun fact, and shout out to Lamaya Good. She was also a part of the music group Isis. So Lamaya's been doing this, and she looks amazing. So shout out to her. But we do find out that Taj wants to sign Rebel, but he's afraid that Danita won't approve of her because of her past. And you guessed it, Taj went to go ask Danita if he can sign her to First Kingdom, and Danita's like, no. She basically told him hell no, okay, in gospel terms. But Taj was already expecting this. Caesar is holding a rehearsal for his group that will be performing at the Stellar Awards. And basically Taj is bringing him this viral video that he claims that he hasn't seen yet. But he loves Rebel's voice and wants to invest in her. Now, in this moment, Caesar does tell Taj that he is willing to take a look at Rebel and see about signing her, but Taj first has to get in contact with her, find her, and bring her into his record label. Now, we do cut to this next scene in which Rebel is talking to a fellow stripper and friend, and the friend is basically telling her that, hey, do not feel sorry for Danny, or I guess not feel sorry for Danny, but don't look into this any further because Danny was mixed up into some crazy mess. We do get into the next scene where Taj actually goes into the strip club. He goes into the strip club and he asks the bouncer and shows the bouncer the video of Rebel, like, hey, where is this girl at? The bouncer points him to Rebel, and that's when Rebel sends him up to the private room. Won't take no for an answer, and neither will Rebel because she proceeds to twerk on my good man Taj. However, Taj is a little bit annoyed by Rebel's insistence upon twerking on him, and he kind of pushes her off aggressively, and in this she does call the bouncer and tells him to get the hell out of there because this man is tripping. He just touched me, and we all know you can't touch the strippers in the club now. But he does drop his card on the ground for Rebel to pick up. Now, we do find later on that Rebel does go down to the locker room, and she goes to open Danny's locker where all of her belongings are, just to grab the last of everything, because we know how easy they move them in and move them out and come back in the next time. But we do see all of these sentimental things in the locker, like pictures, and Rebel does find a USB, and maybe this has something on there, because why would Danny keep it in the locker, right? Now, we do cut to Miss Danita Jordan trying to come up with new, fresh music to create a new smash hit for the record label because, as we mentioned earlier, the record label is under a lot of debt. But in this, she does come across these papers sitting on this piano, and they already have music notes on there, and she starts singing the notes on the piano. And something tells me that this is not her music, but we're gonna see if she's gonna do this person exactly how she did Caesar. Now, Taj does come in the middle of Danita playing on the piano and singing, but he comes in and lays down this chord progression, and this sounds like a hit, you guys. Now, also in this sequence, we do cut back to Rebel, and she's back at the house. She's dripped down, she's in the bed, and she's just trying to figure out what is on this USB that's so important that Danny did not mention it to me, but she left it in the locker. She plugs it into her computer, and she does see that Danny basically has a sex tape going on, and she does see the preacher. That's right, she sees Bishop Jordan on this sex tape, and she doesn't know at this point that this is Bishop Jordan, the Bishop Jordan that she was just singing at his church. But she does see that he is familiar, and she thinks this may be a driving force or motivation in killing Danny, that maybe Danny was blackmailing him. She doesn't know, but she knows that Danny recorded this for a purpose. Wow. I mean, this episode was crazy. And this is just the pilot of this season, you guys. I think BET Plus is on to something because this show, as well as The Porter and a couple of other shows, they have me in a chokehold, and I think they're gonna have you in a chokehold as well. So don't forget to keep on watching, and I'll see you guys next time so that we could talk about episode 2 of Kingdom Business.